think what you said is exactly right. It is without question really hard to find time for yourself as a parent, but also the data does bear out that the time actually exists more than we usually think it does. And that is partly because of sort of the way we think about our time and the way we feel during that time. If we're thinking about all the things that we should be doing, even if we're, getting a massage or watching TV or doing whatever it is that like feels like it should be indulgent, if we're busy going through the ticker tape of all the stuff we need to do as parents, then that time doesn't really feel relaxing. So, in terms of implementable tips, the very first thing I say to people is, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit, but is to write down sort of some things that they like to do. Because I think, first of all, there is this idea that when we have time to ourselves, if we ever can get time to ourselves, there's things we should be doing. Like I don't like taking a bubble bath. Like I just don't like it. I don't find it like relaxing, but it's sort of like become this kind of generic like self-care moment. And so then, I don't like doing that. So I'm going to instead put it off and do all the other stuff that I think I need to do. So I think, being really honest with yourself about what it is that you enjoy, and it doesn't need to be anything fancy. Like as Haley knows, I love to watch TV, and I am like, oh my God, it just started pouring rain outside my computer. So apologies if it's really loud. Wow. Anyway, I love to watch TV. And so I think part of it is like knowing yourself, knowing what you like to do as opposed to what you think you're supposed to do. We have this idea of sort of this like self-improvement culture that the things that we should do with our time when we have time for ourselves is doing things to kind of better ourselves as opposed to things we enjoy. And I think at the end of the day, and we've talked about this, when you're tired and you're depleted and you've already, made a million decisions for yourself at work and for your family and for your kids, and suddenly you have 10 minutes and you just look at your phone because it's there and it's easy and it's mindless. So I literally have a list on my phone of things I like to do. And it says like, watch TV, read a book, call a friend, exercise, do a crossword. So that when I do finally find myself with like 10 minutes or, maybe more on a great day, but I think those unexpected moments, those unexpected pockets of time do pop up. And then we have to think like, what am I going to do at this time? And when you're already tired, if you have to then put in the energy to decide what to do, it could take 20 minutes and then the time is gone. So I have this list. I literally look at it and I'm like, oh, this one makes sense right now. Maybe I don't want to work out right now because I have somewhere to go and I don't want to be sweaty, but I can, read a few pages in a book or, whatever the case may be, but having a list of not too many things. Because again, you want to make it easy for yourself to use your time well. So kind of eliminating all the decision making.
Yeah. I do think that the decision fatigue is real and it can be paralyzing, right? Yeah. Where you truly just, the lowest common denominator is to start scrolling. And then your time flies by and you don't know what happened and you feel guilty on top of the guilt you already had.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, which is not to say that there's anything wrong with social media if you enjoy it. And I think there are people who really like going on Instagram or Facebook and connecting with old friends or seeing what they're up to. And I have, I'm not here to like ever shame anyone for what they enjoy doing, because I think, again, it's just, but I think I hear from a lot of parents, and as I was researching this book, that they would do that because it was easy, not because it was pleasurable. And then they would be done and they'd be like, oh, I just like feel regret that they just wasted the little time that they had. And then it was the end of the day and it's like, oh, well, we have to try again tomorrow. So I think it's about sort of doing things with intention. If you want to, sometimes I'm like, I'm in the mood to like look at celebrity stories on Instagram. I'm like, that's fun. But sometimes I do that because I have decision fatigue and I'm just like too exhausted to make a better decision. And then, that's just like a yucky way to go to bed, feeling like, I wasted the only time I had.
Yeah.
I love the easy, not pleasurable. That rings so true. And also I hate baths too. So thank you for calling that out.
I think
what? Oh, bubble bath? Yes.
I'm never in the mood for that. So I appreciate you calling that out. But easy, not pleasurable is a good one.
I need to like meditate or, I have free time. I should, exercise. If you hate exercise, like, yes, of course, good to be healthy, but find a way to enjoy it, because I think the reality is if we don't like doing something, we're not going to do it. And we're going to always say, oh, I need to do the dishes. And, I hate doing dishes. So I'm like, the dishes can wait. but really kind of understanding these pockets of time.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot in there that I would comment on, but one being the idea of the should, right? I'm always in my mind, if I have free time, any amount of time, I am just ruminating on all the things I should be doing. And that is the list. It's never what I want to be doing. It's always what I should be doing. And if I capitalize on my time and do any of those, I feel, okay, good. I was productive. I don't regret it. I think I feel guilty when I do anything that is just, I mean, I love doing jigsaw puzzles. So, and we've discussed this. You, I think, have bought little small ones to do. I unfortunately don't have the capacity to focus only in 15-minute increments. I have to do the full 1,000 pieces. So there is something to be said for limits, right? And yeah.
Well, that's true too. I mean, I think you've touched on like two different things. This idea of should, and I think, and guilt obviously is a really big part of it for all parents. And we have this idea that like, I think the research shows mothers more, I think because women or girls are brought up kind of at an early age to feel like they should always be doing, taking care of other people. But I know the research shows both men and women, mothers and fathers, feel like they're never doing enough for their kids. And so there is this idea that, and we do believe sort of theoretically that time to yourself is important. So it's this idea like, oh, as soon as I get done with everything on the list, I will then do some things for myself. And of course, the list is growing. It's never finished. And so we just are constantly like sliding the part for ourselves. And so to me, I'm a big believer in sort of scheduling that time in. And I talk a lot about sort of having an end to that time. I think we also think about me time as sort of like, I'm when I have this big unlimited bucket of time to myself, then I'm going to do all these things. And if we do something for ourselves, we start to feel guilty, like, oh, there's a million other things waiting for me. So I really believe in sort of carving out like what I call pockets of indulgence, like a true beginning and end, because then you can sort of really lean into that activity. And if you say to yourself, like, I'm going to read for 20 minutes and I'm not going to think about any things I have to do, because those things will all be there in 20 minutes and I'll get back to them. Then you don't have to spend the whole 20 minutes thinking like, I should be doing this. I should be, dealing with kind of like the siren call of all the work that you have to do. And I remember talking to a friend about it, and she was like, I love the idea of it having an endpoint, because then I don't have to feel guilty. Because it's like, I'm going to get to those things just in 20 minutes. And in the best case scenario, you might actually get so lost in the thing that you're doing that you do put it off, and those dishes will still be there and it's not a big deal. But for those of us who kind of, that stress of like leaving things unfinished at the end of the night is so much, there is time to get back to them. I am not saying that you should kind of forget to do everything else that you need to do and forget taking care of people, but also taking care of yourself, because obviously we're not available to really be good parents and be there in our fully like realized selves for other people if we haven't kind of, it's like in your oxygen mask first type of analogy. And as you said, one thing I always tell people is you don't need 2 hours of time, or you don't need a full weekend getaway. You can get a lot done in 20 minutes or even 5 minutes. You may not be able to like do everything, but you can read a poem, and then you're a person who reads poetry. And like, if you're a person who reads poetry, then like you might suddenly think about your time differently.
Yeah. Stevie, I think you had a question that you put in the chat, but you can feel free to.
Okay. I love that idea of reading poetry. That would have never occurred to me, but that sounds beautiful. I'm not a parent, but I'm a big time Kunik fan. And I'm a caretaker, I guess, of my mom in some sense. But I think one of my issues with self-care activities is like, I don't know, it's hard to find self-care activities during quarantine when you can't like go to spas or just like go to drinks with your girlfriends, just go away for a weekend. Like it takes too much engineering to do. It's so exhausting. Mm-hmm. So there's that. And then like self-care to me always turns into like a goal and an achievement oriented thing. Like I have a star chart for like everything that I like to do and accomplish because that's who I am. But I'd like to just find something to do in a relaxing, recharging way. And the other thing, I think also what I wrote in the chat, I was like editing and then I sent it, but I didn't mean to. So if that sounds ridiculous, that's why. And I think the other thing is, for some reason, since quarantine, it's like, I feel like it's 2 p.m. on Saturday before I can even think or move about anything else. And I never felt that. I used to have great weekends planned and whatever, personal things, friends, family. And now I just like, I feel like my weekends fly by and I just don't get out of them what I used to.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because as Haley mentioned, I did write this before this year and so much has changed, obviously. But at the same time, I kind of feel like, oh my gosh, this is more timely than ever because it is even harder, obviously, for many of us to find time for ourselves, whether or not we're parents, obviously, if we're taking care of anyone or anything. And, you know, work, there's so much overlap and the lines are so blurred. So I can commiserate also. And it takes a lot more like administrative work to do anything now. So it's definitely tricky. But I think the effort is even more important and more worthwhile. And oftentimes I think, you know, it's the same thing with like, even in the quote unquote before times, like getting together with friends, a lot of it is like, you have to do the work to kind of remove the barrier the one time. And then hopefully you can sort of lean on that moving forward. So I always say, like with friends, for example, because people say after parenting that they have so much trouble getting together with friends, or even frankly before, you know, even without kids, adults. My very first book was actually about sort of like how hard it is to make new friends and how friendship is so hard as adults. And one thing I found was that really just building in consistency, because that back and forth all the time of like, when are you free? When am I free? Like, what should we do? Takes so long that each time it takes like 4 weeks before you can see each other. So if you build in sort of a reliable, you know, every first Saturday of every month lunch date, back when that was a thing, it becomes a lot easier. So similarly, I would say the same thing. You know, my family, for example, we have started a weekly virtual code names game. And so it's just like everyone knows a Monday night from 8 to 10, like we're doing this. And of course, sometimes people can't attend, but the link is the same. You know, there's a lot less of that administrative work. So I think sometimes it's like you sort of have to bite the bullet and do it the one time and then try, you know, of course, everything is not always as simple as this, you know, to make it so that these can be kind of consistent, regular things. So you don't have to constantly be taking on the burden of planning each time.
Yeah. And